Hi, everybody. It's Vivek here from Meaningful Ideas and Gentle Parents Unite, going live on Facebook. All over Facebook, I'm going live in Gentle Parents Unite, in Peaceful Parenting Community, and also on my page, Meaningful Ideas, and the Gentle Parents Unite page. And also in Becoming Gentle, which is the smaller paid community that Sujai Johnston and I both host. And so I'm kind of all over the place, and I often like to go live at a moment when I'm just, like I'm just like noticing something about my own life, or I'm learning something about my own life. And this is something that happened to me just this moment, and I wanted to share it with you. So my kid is 25, and they are growing up. They have their own apartment. They're living with their partner. They have a full-time job, and they're just doing really well and enjoying their life and having adventures and going places and enjoying their life. And it's quite a beautiful thing for me to witness. And at the same time, there's a certain kind of, I'll say, grief or something that I am feeling because, of course, I miss her and I'm used to being around all the time and being her guide. And I think this is the thing that I want to talk about is like I'm used to being her guide. One of the things that's been very important to me all throughout her life is for me to be her guide. And of course that guide relationship has been mutual, which is one of the most important parts of the guiding relationship. But knowing that, one of the main reasons that I'd made it mutual was because I really wanted to have my influence as a guide, because I was very conscious of the fact that I could see the mistakes that my parents had made. Even from a young age, I knew what was right and what was wrong. Like when I would be shamed, as a kid, I'd be like, okay, I'm not, I'm not doing that when I'm an adult. It was very clear for me, right? And I would get indignant with myself. I said, I'm not gonna. I remember being 13, and the line was like, when I become an adult, I am not going to be an adult who treats 13-year-olds like that. There's no way. I'm not going to do that. It's not going to be what happens. And so I think that's really important, like to remember that. And so for me, one second, I'm just going to paste this in and post it on my page. All right. So for me, this memory is with me all the time, right? And so when my kid was very young, I would. Oh, I have some tea. When my kid was very young, I would always make sure that the guide relationship was mutual so that she felt I was learning as much from them as they were learning from me. I wanted it to be both ways. I wanted them to feel that their wisdom, their joy, their emotional expression, their understanding of life and the way they see life was something that was impacting me and meant something to me. Recently I was going through some papers when my kid was moving into her own place. Back in November, we were gathering up, or September, October, we were gathering up papers. And we found this old paper from when she was in grade 1 or 2, something like that. And the question was, it was an assignment on responsibility. It was who are you responsible to? Who's a responsible person in your life? What are they responsible to you for? What are you responsible to them for? So this is grade 1 or 2. She's doing this at school. She said, my dad is a responsible person in my life because he's responsible for teaching me what's right, and I'm responsible for teaching him the same thing. So she knew at that age that we were both on this path together. This is so important for me, and it's when I work with kids, and I've worked with lots of kids, hundreds, literally hundreds of kids over decades. I have worked with kids in the school system, in the sports environment, in a volunteer at youth conferences, like on a regular basis for decades, and teaching martial arts and teaching dance, and I've just done so many different things that I've worked with kids. Always with this mindset that I'm not above them. That there's no hierarchy between us. And that when I ask them to listen to what I have to say, There's no authority in it. There's no force. I can't force them. I let them know I can't force you. I will not force you. There's no force between us. I'm just asking. And if you say no and you want to talk instead, that's perfectly valid. But I'm still asking, as like we're friends and I want to say something to you for a couple of minutes. I'm asking. Like nine times out of 10, more than that. 99 times out of 100, kids are just like totally cool to just like sit for 5 or 10 minutes and listen if you have something to say when I talk that way, you know. And as soon as one of them is talking and they're talking, and I'll just stop and I'll just wait, or I'll say, you know, your conversation seems important. Would you like to have it outside, like just take a few minutes outside, or I'll just keep going if they're talking quietly enough, or we just like we do, but not in a way that they're sent outside. Not like that. They know it. They know the feeling. It's like, oh yeah, I guess we could spend a couple of minutes outside. We are talking about something. It's about, you know, it's about this person who was liking that person, and we just needed to figure it out all of a sudden. I said, go do it. Go talk about it. And they go on the hallway and they talk about it for 5 minutes, and they really get it out of their system, and then they come back in. And yeah, I've taught classes too. So anyway, the guide relationship has been really important to me all along, including with young people. Whenever I interact with young people, and so now my kid is almost 25. Going to be 25 soon. Almost 25. It's really something. My mind goes woo, and it's like, yeah, but Vivek, you're 53. Remember, and so, but being it, you know, that sense of, again, I'm interrupting myself, but again, that's the part of the reason that I go woo like that is because I never really related to her as if because I was older meant I had any authority or any power over her. I never did, you know. And I know that for a lot of people it's really hard to imagine that. It's like, no, you can't do that, Vivek. No, it upset people then, you know. Like I recently found this letter my mom wrote, and I'm gonna publish it soon. Actually, she wrote it 3 years ago, 4 years ago, something like that. When we spent a day with her, my daughter and myself and my mom, the three of us spent the day together at a local fair, walking around, enjoying things. And later on, she said to me, Vivek, I have to write down my observations. I can't tell you how, because she hadn't spent that much time with us together, watching us interact. And because we interact without hierarchy, it's so unusual for parent and child. We're so used to it. It's embedded in our mindset. I mean, on posts, I know I shouldn't argue with people, but on posts, people like will argue for it to be okay to see children as a lesser class of human being, you know, and apply a different set of values to them. Because it's in our mind so deeply, it's in our consciousness so deeply. It's hard to just see them as just like they're the people. So like with my kid and I, there's this sense of, yes, I was a parent, and you know, you have to feed the kid and make sure they get to school and do their homework when if they want to. It's all consensual, but still, there's life stuff, but there wasn't a sense of that age between us. There was an agelessness in our interaction. And that agelessness, it awakens a deeper self-knowledge in the other person as well, because as soon as the age authority comes in, there's a certain protectiveness that you have to put up, right? But when you break through that, there's this opening that happens. And again, you know, like I'll refer. This is my favorite video on my YouTube channel. If you go to my YouTube channel, which is Meaningful Ideas. There's one of them is called Treating Kids as Equals. Treating Kids as Equals. And it's my favorite video that I've ever done. And it's the video where I was at one of these youth conferences that I was talking about. And I won't go into the whole story now. You should go to my YouTube channel, Meaningful Ideas, and subscribe over there too, please. But check it out. And I talked to these kids about how, and like they were saying, do I have to fill out this form? That was kind of how it started. And I said, well, what does have to mean? Like, if you don't do it, what can I do? And if I can't come over there and grab the pen and like shove the thoughts out of your brain. I can't force you. What can I do? I can make your life unpleasant a little bit because I'm an adult, so I have a certain amount of power. But if you just don't care, then you don't have to fill out the form. So what does have to mean? I don't know. I don't think you have to fill out the form. And they were all of them were like, you know, and so it went on and on and on like that, right? I was like, so like, why would you fill out the form, or why wouldn't you? Like, and then we talked about different reasons why one would and why one wouldn't. Energy level, helping the organization. Are you too tired? Is it worth it? Have you had a good time? Would you like to help the organization? Yes, I would. Maybe there are other ways to help if you don't feel like doing it this way. And like we talked about a few different things. But these kids, what they felt from me was there was no authority saying yes, they should, they have to. I said I can't tell you that. I don't have the authority for that because I'm a human being just like you. And so um, this is the kind of the aftermath of that, where I said, hey, why don't we make a video? We talked about this for like half an hour, and then we all lapsed into a silence. And I said, why don't we make a video about what it felt like to have an adult say this to you? Because they were all still kind of stunned to imagine, like, all these kids were stunned. And the kids in the video was like 1/3 of the kids that stayed behind. A lot of them had gone to bed at this point. You know, curfew, but me and curfew. It was never a word that would ever leave my lips. Well, unless it's legal or something, you know, but not like when it's a little bit more relaxed. We were just at the hotel lobby instead of making them all go up to their rooms, and we had just had this profound experience. And actually, a teacher even comes along in the video to tell us to go to bed. Oh my god, it's such a great video. Anyways, my point is, so let me go back to this about being the guide. So being the guide is so important, and to being the guide is always, and so including with these kids, is always having an empowerment lens on. When you're interacting with your kids, are you seeing them through the empowerment lens, an empowerment lens? How you can empower them? How can you use this moment to empower them? Whether it's empowering them to feel their feelings, whether it's empowering them to shift to a different feeling, whether it's empowering them to make a choice, whether it's empowering them how they see themselves. Where can we see the success in this moment? Like there's all different ways we can see that, different kinds of empowerment, but different than a behavior modification lens, which doesn't really lend to a lot of connected, creative problem solving. It doesn't really lend to that, right? It more lends to some coercion and frustration and irritation, and which is natural, but part of the work that we do as working at the non-coercive collaborative parenting, the gentle parenting, part of the work we do is we try and notice the times where we do lose that patience, and we do find it difficult. And we shift instead, right? And we do something different instead. And so I think that's something that is really useful for us. So anyways, so I was thinking about my kids, right? So like my kid now, going back to that, my kid now is 25 and almost 25 and living on her own. Well, living with her partner. Sorry, not on her own. Living with her partner. And I was thinking about how I've always been her guide. And almost daily I would do some kind of empowering thing. But now I'm only seeing her once every couple of weeks. And even the texting is becoming less frequent because she's all living her life, doing her thing, right? Which is great because that's what we've always kind of like wanted her to do, is when she felt ready in her way to do her thing, to go do her life, and not to feel like tethered to it. She's finding her way. But I'm always here for her, and I'm like, let's make a date. And she's like, yeah, let's make a date. But like that's like once every couple of weeks. Then we go for a long drive and we listen to music. So I was feeling a bit out of sorts because I'm used to that being more daily, right? Even though it's been a couple of years, it's been building that she's to her moving into her own place. I'm still used to it being more of a daily event. So all of a sudden I had this thing where, and this has happened to me before, I just forgot about it, where I had to expand my timeline. And I think that's what I called the name of this video, is expanding my timeline. So instead of thinking of daily and of daily influences, which I also pay attention to, but the impact of those daily influences, I had to think of a more stretched out timeline of influencing over months, you know. And when I say influence, I'm talking about that empowerment lens. Like, how can I help my kid find empowerment? How can I help them find their way through obstacles so that they learn the most about it and feel good about themselves? And like, I have a lot of knowledge around that, you know. It's what I do, it's what I practice, it's what I teach. So I want to offer that to my kid, you know. But I want to do it in a way that's palatable for them. Otherwise, they don't want to hear it. This is why the guide relationship is so important. So, but the thing about shifting timeline, like I remember when she was 1 year old, and I looked at her when she was 1 year old, and I remembered her when she was 6 months, and I was like, wow, that's a completely different person. And then I thought of an old Stephen Wright joke, and I was like, wow, not only she at 1 year old compared to 6 months, her age doubled. That would be like me being 106 all of a sudden. Like, that's a big age. That's a big age percentage-ing, right? Doubling your age all of a sudden. And she really, I could see the double of 6 months in her consciousness. And as soon as I saw it, she looked at me like, you saw me. It was this amazing moment. We often had these little tussles between us where I wouldn't see her, and then I would tune in and I would see her again, right? So this has happened even at 1 year old. I was still looking at her as a 6 month old. And then suddenly I like updated and I saw her, and I remember her looking at me with this glare. And she's like, yes, you weren't seeing me, now you saw me. Don't forget that. Right? There was like this little glare she gave me at 1 year old. But kids will do that if you look at them like that. If you can access those parts of your own consciousness where you're really aware of yourself, aware of yourself, and aware of your scripts. Like, I know I have scripts. Let me just tell you, okay? I have scripts. If you follow me on social media and you watch my comments on political things, I have my scripts. I know my scripts, and I know the scripts that I'm scripting against. Ah, goodness me. But like, I also can spend a lot of time not in those scripts. And when I do that, then I'm able to really see my kid for who they are, right? And see myself for who they are. Anyway, so this moment when I had to let go of that timeline, there was like a release of control almost, I felt, or a release of influence. I had to let it go. I had to zoom out a little bit more and say, okay, I can just do smaller drops of influence rather than the more concentrated that I used to do. Because for so many years, it was like a laser, right? From the time she was that age, I've been paying that much attention to her consciousness. Like I was saying, where she would look at me and say, okay, now you're seeing me. And then if I wouldn't see, she would demand to be seen. This kid demanded to be seen, but it's like that with every kid I interact with. Once the kid gets that I get them, they demand to be gotten. This is why kids can glaze over. Like, kids often will glaze over. You look at kids out there. And you'll see this certain glazed over look where they're not really connecting deeply with the adults around. And there's just like this, they're like this protective layer. And the young ones, like really young, less than a year, less than 6 months, they often don't have as much of it, don't have it at first. Because it takes a little while before they realize, oh wait, this is something for me to protect myself against. And then they kind of retreat. And so then somebody who comes along like me, I'm very practiced at it because I'm very careful with my mindset and how I approach, a young person. Because of that, they sense me right away. They're like, okay, this adult isn't doing that thing. Because it's so familiar to them. It's the thing. They all know it. Tell me you know what I'm talking about. You have to know it. This is one of those things that once you get this, it's like, oh, I see. Of course I can never do a timeout again. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, once you see kids like that, as the same as you can never put them in a timeout. Of course not. You couldn't do that. right? Because they're as much the consciousness that you are that they are. You know, they're not just kids that you have to manage. It's not that. So, and I only mentioned the timeout because I was just on a post on tigering on Instagram about time that was about timeouts. That was a repost of Sterna Suissa, who I really respect as well. Both of those people, I respect their mindsets very much. And it was a post where there was a mention of childism and the different things that we think are okay for kids that we would not do to an adult or accept. And a timeout was one of those things. And a timeout, as in a kid being put in a room against their will and not being allowed out. Yes, it's they may have their bed and they may have stuff, but the thing is, even with stuff, it's not something we would do to an adult. Like, I mean, I imagine my partner, and I put her in the room, and I say, you can't come out for 1 minute, but you have your computer and your tablet and internet, so it's okay. But you can't come out. And she comes to the door, and I say no. There's no way, right? There's no way between us that could go down, right? But we see kids a little differently, right? We see them a little differently until we don't, and then when you don't, it's hard to turn that off again, And so this is one of the things that I want to really encourage you to do is to see kids that way, right? So then and from the earliest age you can do it, From the earliest age you can do it, and they respond, Like there was this one time. There was this one time. I'll tell you the story. My mom. So my mother, her name is Shivani, and she's an amazing person. And it was a little bit late for her. It's like 12:30 at night. It's a little bit late for her, so she's not watching live, but she's going to watch tomorrow. I love you, Mom. And she's an amazing person. She does self-empowerment workshops in prisons. And if you ever want somebody to do a powerful empowerment, get to the guts of things, transform your life workshop, this is the person for it, because her workshop transformed the lives of so many of these people in prison, the inmates in prison. So many of them that they turned their lives around, that her course became the most requested course in the whole institution. An amazing thing. She turned lives around all the time. And she's an amazing person. And why was I going to talk? I got distracted talking about her. Why was I talking about her? I forget. Anyway, you know what? It doesn't matter. I'm just gonna end this right now because I've been talking on and on and on. But I wanted to talk about that moment where I expanded my awareness. I'm sure I'll watch this later and I'll be like, oh man, that's what I was saying. But anyways, I'm talking about that moment where I was expanding my awareness, because for some reason I can't see any comments. Where I was expanding my awareness, and when I was doing that, expanding my timeline, right? Remember I mentioned expanding my timeline? So the story. Oh man, the story. What story? My mom. I wish I could listen to it back, but I can't. My mom and the story. Going live. Anyway, that's why you brought up. Tell us the story. But which story? Like, I can't remember which story. A story about her? My mind, sometimes this is one thing, like, it's interesting for me, like, because my mind, if I can get a little more detail, Taylor, I would be very grateful. My mind does this where it suddenly forgets things. And it really gives me a lot of empathy for people whose minds work differently, because this is one thing that I've had to deal with, and my wife also has to deal with. for this situation. You know, when I'm in the middle of talking and I forget what I'm talking about. And so I know timeouts. Excellent. Okay. Right. So right. Okay. Anyway, timeouts. I was talking about timeouts, and you wouldn't put an adult in timeout in the same way as what I was talking about. Thank you. And so my mom works in the prison. Thank you. Okay. Right. Exactly. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you. Yes, and this is what the essence of childism is. Because my mom, who works in this prison, thank you. So I was talking about, so helpful. See how I kind of wrote that out? I also didn't quite give up. I almost gave up, and then you jumped in to help, and then I kind of stuck with it a little bit. And I was talking about the way the mind works too, and allowing oneself to have that experience of the mind. You know, so I think that's a thing. Another thing about accommodation and accepting a certain amount of how different people's minds work. Right. So let me backtrack. So I'm kind of remembering where I was going. So about having this intense awareness of people, and when you connect with them person to person, and you see your kids, how they reflect it back to you. And my mom, all right, my mom works at the prison. Thank you. And my mom works at the prison. And this one day, so I used to drive her every week. So I would drive her to the prison, and yes, Taylor, I am so grateful to you. I'm gonna reach out to you and thank you personally. So so I'm at the prison, and there's two things about the prison actually. One thing is that my mom would use the same kind of connection to connect with those prisoners that I use to connect with kids and to help parents connect with their kids. The same mindset of seeing past the surface to the consciousness, to the deep, deep consciousness beneath. You know, the layers beneath I call it the infinite onion, right? We're the layers, the infinite layers we are, but at the core of the onion, my core can recognize your core. And you can touch someone's awareness that way, through your own awareness. And doing this with kids is amazing. So we're at the prison one time, and my mom had gone into the washroom, which is just around the corner, and this one employee that was on mat leave came in, and she had this like little kid who was only like a month and a half old. So cute. So cute. And so I went over, and she was kind of passing this baby around. And so then now my habit is always to ask for consent. And so I went to the kid, and she said, "Would you like to say hello?" Because they all know me, because we've been going there for years, right? This is 10 years we've been going there, almost 10 years. So they all know me. So they were like, "Would you like to hold him?" And I said, "Yeah, please. Let me ask him first." And they all people always look at me funny when I say that, because it's like a month and a half old, right? Maybe 2 months. And I said, "Hey, little one, can I hold you?" And kids kind of know, they know what this means by this time. This kid had just been passed around. And this kid, unlike the 5-month-old that I talk about in the other video, which is called A Big Yes. I think it's called A Big Yes on my YouTube channel, which I also recommend watching. A really great video. I'm actually at the youth conference when I'm doing this video, and I'm giving a little parenting talk at lunchtime. And we filmed part of it. And I'm always trying to talk about parenting. I always want to get this message. Just treat your kids this way instead. Try this instead. And anyway, so this little baby comes into my arms, right? And all of a sudden, I do this. And one of the first things I say to little babies is, I say, "I want to know what it's like where you just came from." And I'm like holding the little baby. I can see that moment. And I say, "Oh, I want to know what it's like." And I look right in their eyes. I want to know what it's like where you just came from. Because I really want them to know that I know that they know something that I don't know. And I really want to know what that thing is, because I can feel that I lost it. I can feel it. Ugh. Oh, and it aches inside of me. Can you remember that feeling? Can you feel that ache with me? When you feel that ache, it's like, and then kids, you can see that they see it, right? But then that glaze comes over the eyes, and then it's hard to see them. hard to see it, hard to see it for yourself. And like that awareness of that light was something that I focused on so much with my kid. I wanted to preserve that more than anything, more than any practical concern. I was concerned with protecting that sense of themselves, that brightness, that consciousness, right? So, anyways, I have this baby, and all of a sudden, this baby and I go into this trance, and it just goes completely still and just breathing. The two of us are breathing together, and everybody becomes still. Everybody in the around the desk, because there was like 3 or 4 people that were oohing and awing at first, but all of a sudden everybody went still, and my mom came out. And usually when my mom is around a baby, she like a magnet, she comes to it. But she said that the moment that we were having was so kind of intense and personal that she stopped in her tracks, like 15 feet away, and couldn't come closer. And everybody had just stopped. And we just spent this moment kind of rocking back and forth. And I was saying, yes, I absolutely hear you. And I said, this is and this is one of the things I say. I say, it's a challenging place. You have within you an infinite power that, and in knowledge and wisdom and love, that you can find your way through any obstacle. And there's going to be people that love you, and there's going to be people that give you a hard time. And you have something inside of you that's worth it. And I always say something like that to kids. I call it speaking power to them. Whenever I'm near a young person, I do that. And when I'm around the same young person regularly, they think it's odd, but they like it because they hear the sincerity in it. And so I was doing that with this little kid, but quietly. And then at some point, it got wriggly, and I gave it back to the parent. And my mom came over, and then we went to did the workshop and everything. But as young, my point is, as young as that, a kid knows when you're not separating yourself. They know it, they feel it, But even more so as they grow, even more so when they're 2, and then they're behaving like 2-year-olds will behave like they do. It's so different. The adult mind goes, ah! And I understand that, believe me. But the more you can get yourself in there, the more actual influence you'll have, and the more lasting that influence will be. Like, I knew this as a certainty when my kid was young. I don't know how I knew it. I'm very fortunate, but I knew as a certainty that if I tried to influence from the outside in, I was always going to be playing catch-up. I was always going to be playing defense. Always. I knew it because I remember. Right? So I remember so clearly. Taylor, I'm so happy you did. This is because of you. I remember so clearly, I remember so clearly what it felt like. So then tuning into my kid in the present, even now. So I kept doing that all throughout the years. Every 6 months I would reevaluate. Am I seeing this person? This is what I wanted to talk about, was the 6-month rule. After that first glaring moment that my kid gave me, the 6-month rule, it came back to me that every 6 months every 6 months I would reevaluate how I would see my kid. Every 6 months I would rethink it. Am I still really present? Am I still really seeing them? I have to tell you, the reason I paused there is I also notice when I have one of those complete memory wipes, it's really intense. It actually impacts my body. That's why I stopped and laughed for a minute, because the feeling of remembering and being really back on track with all of those different layers, because I love those layers, and I don't want to miss any of it, because I really want to help you get the mindset the way I see it. That's all I have to offer, right? All I have to offer. I do not have a PhD, trust me. All I have to offer is to show you the mindset the way I see it. Because the way I see it, the way I interact with kids, on Zoom again, when's the next call with Vivek? Or the parents are listening just to my videos, like on my YouTube channel or something, and the kid will come in and go, that guy sounds like somebody you can trust, without hardly even hearing any of it, right? Because I'm out there saying, and I always tell parents, if the kids are around, I'm always going to take their side. because I'm the champion of the kids. I want them. I want the. This is it, right? Let's liberate them. But in doing so, this is what I was saying, right? I knew for sure that if I was guiding from the outside in, I was going to lose my influence. So I knew I had to stay in a very narrow lane of where I could influence, where it wasn't coercive outside, as soon as outside, right? That's why I say, I keep acting like the microphone is the center. It's the camera, really. But I keep saying, one of my sayings is, guide your kids like the banks of a river, guiding the flow, not like a dam stopping the flow. And I love that one-liner, because those banks are the window of tolerance that your kid can feel your guidance without feel it being authoritative. And I said authoritative, not authoritarian, on purpose. Even authoritative is too much. It's too much. Because you still hold the authority. You know, just like the timeout. If you hold that authority, then that you could possibly put them in their room, possibly even against their will. Possibly, if they think possibly it could happen, then how can they be vulnerable? They can't. This is why I advocate for no punishments and no consequences and no forced limits where you use your force to take the limits. None of that of any kind, please. This is what I advocate. This is all I have, right? When I was saying all I have is the mindset the way I see it, it's this, the core of human interactions. At least with our kids. I'm not saying everybody on the internet, on Facebook that or Instagram that you're arguing with, you have to do this. But with our kids, let's come from that least possible coercively using our power possible. It's never going to be perfect. I know that. Even with my kid, even now, it's not perfect. But I try every day. That's what it is. I call it the daily grind. You know, the daily grind is that. You try every day. And then you fail every day, and that's okay. And you love yourself, and you think about it. Okay, what did I do? Yeah, okay, tomorrow I'll do this instead. Okay, I'm going back to it. And then you go back to it, right? It's the daily grind. So when I had that moment of realizing I still want to be a guide, but now she's 25, I have to change that. I need to like step back a little bit more and drop things in a little bit more and be a little bit more intentional about at least having the 2-week visit. It's just to hang out, and I don't have to tell her wisdom in the same way. And then I share my stuff. Every week I share I do a class every single week. Every single week I do a class for my membership group that I host with my colleague and best friend and one of the wisest people I know, Sujai Johnston, who is the founder of Gentle Parents Unite, which is the Facebook group that we run with an amazing group of admin. And so it's like a beautiful space. And the two of us host a paid membership space where we do weekly coaching calls. And I host a weekly class where I go live like this for an hour every single week. For 2 years, almost 3 years now, I've gone live every single week and gone into detail about a specific topic. And last week it was micro practices and what are the different micro practices you can do. And we also do a weekly coaching call. I do 1 weekly coaching call. Sujai does 2 or 3 weekly coaching calls, group coaching calls where you can talk about something personally and get a personal check-in. Like, there's so much live interaction that happens. It's a great group. And so I love the work that we do over there, and you can find me over there. You can also find me at Meaningful Ideas on Facebook and Instagram and YouTube and Twitter, and I would love for you to follow me in all those places. And I think I'm going to end there, even if it was mid-story at this point. I feel like I really got my point across. That moment when I realized I wanted to I didn't finish my point. I'm going to keep going. So that I'm loving this live, by the way. I'm loving it because my mind is it's really, for me, there's a disability. I'm always thinking about disability stuff and ableism stuff. I know I'm kind of switching topics, but kind of not, because I have a lot of ableism activist experts that I'm friends with, that I listen to very deeply, and it often sounds like the same plea I'm making for children to be seen as valid human beings, equal of just like at least basic human rights. More than that, please, but at least. And I think about like me and my mind and those memory wipes that I have, where they kind of just disappears, which I mostly accept. But sometimes when I'm going live and it's completely gone, often it comes back a little sooner than that. Um, the shame and embarrassment of it, and then feeling that in the body, it's a heavy thing. It's a heavy thing because even now I haven't completely gotten to the end of my story, and I really, really want to keep going to my story. So I was sitting here, and I'm often just thinking, and I'm watching some movie on Netflix that reminded me of my kids. So I paused and I sent her a message, and I said, "This reminds me of us. It was probably us in a past life." And I always send her things like that to connect. And then I was realizing it. That's the moment where I realized that this is really about all I'm going to get right now is that text. And I realized I had to take that step back, and I had to have that expanded timeline, which is the title of this video. The expanded timeline of now I'm going to like zoom out a little bit more. And every 6 months I practice zooming out a little bit more because our kids develop every 6 months. And this is another one, but feels like a bigger one, right? She's about to be 25, so it's a bigger zoom out. And there's always a little bit of a loss that comes with that too. It's natural, you know. But I have done my best to preserve that light and to help her understand the way the world works and to understand her own values so that she's not operating from someone else's values but from her own. And that's really, for me, what's really important. It's another thing you can't do in a coercive relationship. Is, anytime there's coercion, the kid can't look at their own values. They have to conform to the expectations of the coercion because they have to, either to resist it or to comply or to distance themselves completely. I always say there's three main responses to coercion: resistance, compliance, and distance. And all three are heartbreaking, really, right? None of them are cooperation. So at that moment, when I realized I had to let go, when I realized that I had to shift my mindset with my kid, which is hard to do. It's hard to do. It's why I understand why it's so hard to shift to this mindset of really not holding authority over your kids, right? Because even inside of that, you have to keep shifting your mindset. So in that moment, I felt the grief of it. I felt the expansion of it because there's also an expansiveness of it, and my body actually had this feeling, and I moved and I did some kind of a thing, and then I had this energy in my this energy in my body. And then I actually put some music on, and I got up and I jumped up and I started dancing. And I'm dancing around the living room, and then at some point I kind of like got tired, and I was like, and I thought, you know what, I'm gonna go live. And then my computer crashed, and I had to then my computer crashed, and I had to reboot. So I got some tea. By the way, I'm drinking tea. I wonder if you can see this. Let me press play and see if you can see this. I don't know if I've caught up. I'm drinking tea from a mug that I got as a sample because I'm going to start selling tea with my own sayings on it very soon. This one says, kids are not acting out, they're reaching out. And this one says, this side, even though this won't be on one mug when I'm actually selling it, it's going to be on 2 mugs, but I got this as a sample to test it. And this one says, you do not have to change anything to be worthy of infinite love. And I love both of those sayings, and so I thought this is a beautiful mug, and I'm drinking my tea out of it. And one day, either on my website, I'm still working out the details, either on my website or on Etsy, or maybe both, it's going to be available, and I'll let you know. And and so that's it, everybody. I'm done. That's it. I really rambled on, but that's okay. That's kind of what I wanted. I just wanted to share with you where I'm at. There's something about being on a continuous journey of learning and deepening your awareness. That's so important on this path. Never be satisfied. It's never enough. Always want more. Always look for more. Always dig for more. And then you know you're going to be all right at that point, right? You know you're going to be all right because even if you make mistakes, you know you're going to learn from it because it becomes a habit, right? And then you're really modeling for kids what it means to learn from mistakes because you give yourself the grace and you learn from it. I always say learn from your mistakes with minimum shame and maximum change. It won't be perfect change, it's maximum change. And it won't be shame. It won't be no shame because, we're human. It won't be no shame, but it'll be minimum shame. That's what we're going for, is minimum shame. So as long as we can do change with maximum shame, maximum change, minimum shame, that's not one that you want to get backwards. Then we're doing all right. All right, everybody. I think I am done for the evening. I hope you enjoyed my ramblings. I hope that something in here inspires you with your kids to see them a little differently, to feel about them a little differently, to feel a little bit different about yourself, have compassion for yourself. You're doing amazing work just by listening to this material and wanting to change and wanting to do things differently. You're doing amazing work, breaking cycles. That's not never going to be perfect and never going to be easy. That's what I talked about the daily grind earlier, right? That's why I am still up at 1 a.m. doing my own processing and having epiphanies. It's just that I get on the video and share it with you. That's how I teach. I just share what I'm learning, right? That's all I got. That's what I got for you. And so this is but we're on the path together. We're learning together. And same in the membership group that I was talking about before. This group of people is like dedicated to the non-coercive collaborative mindset, NCCM, the non-coercive collaborative mindset. Non-coercive is what we don't do. Collaborative is what we do, the don't do and the do. And we work on both. If you want to join us over there and work with me and Sujai personally on a weekly basis, you can join us at gentleparentsunite.com. We would love to see you over there. Sujai is the founder of Gentle Parents Unite. I do this as if it's a big house, but it's a huge house that she has created. She's an amazing visionary being, and I love collaborating with her, and I love that we're business partners together. And you should follow her because the way she writes her wisdom, it takes me like 50 paragraphs, and she writes just a few paragraphs and gets like 10,000 shares because she penetrates to the core of the issues and the mindset. I love it. Just the other day, she was doing her coaching call, and I came on to visit because both of us, what we do is we give a little talk at the beginning of each coaching call. So like if the coaching call is like 2.5 hours, the first 20 minutes or so, we'll talk about conscious parenting of some sort, something about it. And I talked about something called no preference on Monday. That was my coaching call day, and I talked about something called no preference. But Sujai yesterday was talking about power struggles, and how to think about power struggles, and how to get out of power struggles, and how to avoid them altogether, and how to get out of them once you're in them, and the mindset around them. About 20 minutes she was talking, and I was just listening, going, "Wow, it's so brilliant." I just loved what she was saying. I was learning so much, and I was like, "I'm so fortunate to get to work with this person." Honestly, and so like you can do if you're a parent who's really committed to the mindset, really wanting to be non-coercive, consider joining our community, gentleparentsunite.com. If that's not for you, then please also follow me on Meaningful Ideas everywhere because I have so much content like this. I just spoke for I don't know how long, an hour or something. I have a lot of videos here on Meaningful Ideas page on Facebook. A lot of videos on YouTube, Meaningful Ideas. I'm closing in on 100 videos over there. Soon it will be. And then also on Twitter, I'm tweeting like almost daily these days. I'm tweeting, and some stuff is only on Twitter and Instagram as well. And that's it, everybody. I love you very much. I really care about your families, and I wish you all the best. I hope that this video went through well. I hope that I sounded okay. I'm doing it through my laptop because Facebook won't let me do it through my phone and share it everywhere. So anyway, peace out, everybody. I love you all. Happy New Year. And I'm with you. And please follow me. And I hope this was inspiring for you. And I'm out.